Right now, there's a part of the world most people never think about. But if the United States loses control of it, everything changes. This isn't about land, it's not about ice. It's about leverage. Because if China controls the Arctic, the US doesn't just lose influence, it loses options. And that's why this region may soon force America's hand. When you close your eyes and picture the top of the world, what do you see? Most people think the Arctic is empty. They imagine a frozen wasteland where nothing happens, nobody lives, and the only residents are polar bears wandering across shifting ice sheets. Or, if they do think about the region, they view it strictly through an environmental lens, a story solely about climate change. But have you ever wondered why the world's most powerful militaries are quietly moving their most expensive assets to a game board that supposedly doesn't matter? Why are billions of dollars being poured into a region that is hostile to human life? We tend to view the world through traditional borders, lines drawn in the sand or fences built across the soil. But in the high north, the game isn't about who holds the deed to the territory. It's about who controls the flow. Think about it in terms of a highway. Does it matter who technically owns the asphalt if someone else sets up the checkpoint, controls the toll booth, and decides who gets to drive on it? That is the dynamic forming right now. The power in the Arctic doesn't come from planting a flag. It comes from writing the rules of transit. We look east to Europe, west to Asia, and south to the border, but we rarely look up. This isn't about Greenland yet. It's about a fundamental shift in how the world operates. If you switch your perspective and look at the world from the top down, a polar projection, you realize something startling. Russia, the United States, Canada, and Europe are all touching. They are neighbors huddled around a central ocean. If you control that central ocean, you don't just control snow, you overlook the entire northern hemisphere. You hold the high ground over the world's most productive economies. So why are we suddenly seeing headlines about icebreakers and radar stations? Because the definition of strategic territory is changing. While the world has been distracted by conflicts in the Middle East and the Pacific, the real pressure is starting to press down from the north. Control here beats ownership, and right now, control is up for grabs. For most of human history, the Arctic Ocean was a wall. It was impassable. It protected North America from the top, acting as a massive frozen shield that no navy could penetrate. But that wall is coming down. As the ice recedes, it is not just water appearing, it's money. The Northern Sea route is opening up, and it is not just a line on a map. It is a shortcut that fundamentally alters the mathematics of global trade. Imagine a ship traveling from Shanghai to Rotterdam. Currently, it has to go the long way around, navigating the Suez Canal and spending weeks at sea. Now, imagine a route that slashes nearly 4,000 miles in 2 weeks off that journey. What happens to the global economy when the world's trade routes shift north? If you could skip the traffic of the Suez Canal and the insecurity of geopolitical choke points, wouldn't you? That is the inevitability of the Arctic. It is becoming a maritime highway. The nation that secures this route holds the keys to the fastest supply chain in human history. But it's not just about shipping containers. Underneath that dark, cold water lies a massive percentage of the world's undiscovered energy. And rare earth minerals, the materials required to build everything from iPhone batteries to fighter jets. But forget the resource numbers for a second. Ask yourself this. In a world starving for energy, do you think the major powers are going to leave those resources sitting there just because it's cold? And then there is the military reality. If you look at a globe, what is the shortest distance between the nuclear silos of the great powers? It isn't across the Atlantic, it isn't across the Pacific, it is over the pole. The Arctic is the ultimate high ground. For decades, it was a buffer zone. But what happens when the buffer melts? Suddenly, the back door to the United States is wide open. The geography that once protected North America is now becoming a highway for competitors. This is why the region suddenly matters. It is no longer a barrier, it is a bridge. And the question is, who gets to collect the toll? Its northernmost point is nearly 900 miles away from the Arctic Circle. So how do they justify being a major player in the region? They simply rebranded themselves. China now calls itself a near-Arctic state. It sounds official, doesn't it? But it is a title they created out of thin air to justify an expansion that has nothing to do with geography and everything to do with ambition. What does that actually look like on the ground? Beijing isn't sending in fleets of warships with guns blazing. That would be too loud. Instead, they are playing a quieter, smarter game. They are engaging in strategic patience. They are sending researchers. They are sending investors. They are sending icebreakers painted in civilian colors. None of this is accidental. China calls this the Polar Silk Road. They are building ports. On paper, this is all for science and commerce. They claim they are there to study the climate and map the ocean floor for safer shipping. Ask yourself, why does a trade nation need such detailed sonar maps of submarine routes? Why does a civilian research station need the ability to track satellites with military-grade precision? In the world of intelligence, dual use is the name of the game. A station built to listen to whale songs can also listen for the acoustic signature of American submarines. And see Japan and South Korea blocking their access to the open ocean. They feel surrounded. But the Arctic, it offers a route that the US Navy doesn't control. They are building the infrastructure of influence. They are laying the groundwork so that by the time the West wakes up, they are embedding themselves into the economy of the North so deeply that removing them becomes impossible. It creates a third ocean. Narrow choke points like the Bering Strait can be controlled, bottling up fleets and threatening trade. More critically, a forward Chinese or Russian presence slashes US warning time from minutes to almost none. This is already being signaled through joint patrols near Alaska. The issue is not resources or greed. It is strategic depth. Lose that depth and the homeland becomes exposed. Here is the hard truth Washington is avoiding. While China plans and Russia builds, the United States has fallen behind. Russia dominates the Arctic with nuclear icebreakers and fortified bases. China is rapidly expanding its polar fleet, designing ships built for autonomous operations in extreme cold. The United States has only one or two aging heavy icebreakers to cover the entire region. Neutrality no longer works when rivals change the rules. Every year of delay raises the cost of entry. Fleets take decades to build. Infrastructure costs billions. This is not a choice between war and peace. It is a choice between presence or absence, and absence in geopolitics is surrender. Finally, we need to realize that the Arctic is not an isolated event. It is part of a playbook we have seen before. This isn't unique to the Arctic. Look at the ports in Africa. Look at the strategic islands in the South Pacific. First comes the investment. It looks like help. It looks like business. Then comes the influence. The political pressure to vote a certain way, to look the other way. And finally comes the control. Small rocks and reefs were turned into military fortresses while the world debated the legality of it. By the time the debate was over, the bases were already built, and the missiles were already there. The Arctic is the next iteration of this strategy. It is the highest stakes version of the game because the geography is so critical to American security. The United States cannot allow China to control the Arctic, not because of what is there today, but because of what will be there tomorrow. If we ignore the top of the world, we might find that the world has changed while we weren't looking. The ice is melting, but the competition is freezing into place. And the window to act is getting smaller by the day. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. See you in the next one.